बायोप्सी तो अभी चलती है, उसी में जब बायोप्सी का प्रोसेस 7 दिन लगते हैं, हमारे नहीं होता वैक्सीन। प्रोसेसिंग पहले हुआ है जब तक लगाएंगे तब तक वो एग्रीमेंट करते हैं
आगे
देख लेती है
मैम इनको आवाज चेक कर दीजिए। वहाँ से करा रहे
हेलो हेलो
उसको मत चलेगा ऊपर वाला।
हेलो 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 कहाँ चल रहा है? ये माइक देखना है, ये ऑन है, बंद ना करो ना तो इस समय आ गया ऑन रखो।
करे फिर एकदम से यही से ऑपरेट करेंगे। चेक कर लो कहाँ क्या मुझे नहीं भेजो हेलो
मैम थोड़ा बोल दीजिए।
हेलो गुड आफ्टरनून। हेलो गुड आफ्टरनून एवरीवन। सच्ची बता दो किसको
रखवा लिया राइट सेव कर लिया सर। संजय क्या संजय जरूरत क्या है मुझे नहीं पता। ये तो स्मॉल ग्रुप में मीटिंग है, ये तो और खाली रहना था। कौन बुलाया है मुझे क्या नहीं मुझे बुलाया तो ये बच्चे छोटा मेरे बच्चे तो और चिड़िया लग रहे हैं। इससे जब तुम फैकल्टी आती है ना फैकल्टी तो हो जाएगी उनके कंपेरिजन आना ही था तो फैकल्टी आती है ना लीव की जरूरत ही नहीं है। अब तुम बार बार क्या कर रहे हो
मैम ये 2 तरीके मैम वहाँ कहाँ से यहाँ सुन दे रहा
तो जल्दी आके करते सुबह 12:15 बजे।
आ गई। हेलो हेलो
एक सिंगल कर दी मैंने।
हेलो हेलो
एक
ठीक
किया है, सिंगल कर दी,
ठीक है,
उसको बंद कर दिया वहां से।
ये पता नहीं।
चैनल 1 पे
नहीं मैम, अब नहीं करेंगे।
हेलो हेलो A very good afternoon and a warm welcome to our distinguished international guests from the University of Manitoba, Canada. Requesting the dignitaries to kindly take their seats on the dais. Dr. Michael Benarosh. I request the dignitaries to please kindly take their seats on the dais. Dr. Michael Benarosh, Professor Sonia Nityanand ma'am, Dr. Peter Nickerson, Dr. Jose, Dr. James Blanchard, and Dr. Marissa Becker. I
I welcome the esteemed international delegation from University of Manitoba, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Ma'am, Padam Shri Dr. Sonia Nityanand, members from the UP Technical State Unit, our esteemed administrative officers of KGMU, various heads of the departments, faculty members, students, to this special day. Today marks an important milestone for both KGMU and University of Manitoba as we come together to sign the Memorandum of Understanding, an agreement that reflects our shared commitment to academic excellence and research collaboration. We are particularly honored by the presence of the distinguished delegation from the University of Manitoba. We have with us Dr. Michael Benarosh, the President and the Vice Chancellor of the University of Manitoba, who has dedicated over 3 decades to transformative higher education and research in economics. His key priority areas are equity, diversity, inclusion, reconciliation, and indigenous success. His presence at KGMU is particularly meaningful as we embark on this new institutional partnership. Thank you, sir, for your valuable time. It's a privilege to have with us Dr. Peter Nickerson, who is the Dean and Vice Provost of Radi Faculty of Health Sciences at the University of Manitoba. Dr. Nickerson is an internationally renowned physician-scientist, a distinguished professor of internal medicine and immunology, and a leader in the field of organ transplantation and nephrology. His guidance will be invaluable in this collaboration. Thank you, sir, for being a part of this collaboration. We are honored to have with us Dr. Jose Lawa, Dean and Professor at the College of Community and Global Health, Faculty of Health Sciences, University of Manitoba. She is a globally respected scholar whose work focuses on improving healthcare access for underserved populations, indigenous health systems, and health equity. We are also delighted to welcome Dr. James Blanchard, who is the Executive Director of the Institute of Global Public Health and Canada Research Chair in Epidemiology and Global Public Health. Dr. Blanchard is a distinguished epidemiologist with extensive experience in global health, research, and public health program implementation across South Asia and Africa for over the past 25 years. Thank you, sir. We are delighted with the presence of Dr. Marisa Becker, who is the Professor and Director of Technical Collaborations at the Institute for Global Public Health. Dr. Becker is an accomplished infectious disease physician and researcher whose work focuses on HIV and infectious disease outcomes amongst the marginalized populations. Her leadership in global health programs, including significant work in India, it reflects a strong commitment to research-driven health system strengthening. We are also pleased to be joined by the members of the UP State Technical Unit. I welcome Mr. Vikas Gothalwal, Dr. Vasant Kumar, Dr. Shaji Isaac, Mr. John Anthony, Dr. Uma Singh Ma'am, Dr. Renu Srivastav, Dr. Ravi Prakash, Dr. Bidyut Sarkar, Mr. Anant Raman, Dr. Brinda Frey, and Dr. Madhavi Devraj. We are truly honored by the presence of this distinguished delegation, and we look forward to build a meaningful, impactful, and enduring relationship. May I now invite Dr. James Blanchard, Executive Director of the Institute of Global Public Health, University of Manitoba, to set the context for today's agenda.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Nityanand, first, before I begin, I want to congratulate you on the Padma Shri honor. This is a wonderful award. It's a testament to a very long... It's a dedication, I think, to excellence, but also commitment to the people of Uttar Pradesh, the people of India. And I think that it's always wonderful, I think, for somebody from our health sciences to be recognized for the hard work that many of you will do and have been doing over the years. to serve the people. And I think that's a really wonderful honor. So congratulations again. I used to do a lot more of this, standing in front of people in a lecture hall, lecture theater, and giving lectures on epidemiology. But I've been diverted into working more on global health and global research. But it's wonderful to see everybody here today in a lecture hall like the one that I began my training in many years ago. I won't tell you how many years ago, but many years ago, when I was a first-year medical student as well. Your hall is much more grand than my hall, so I'm here to set the context for this collaboration. Those of us who work in the health sciences and in medical care, clinical care, we have an enormous honor, but also an enormous responsibility. For each patient that you see, if you provide clinical practice, for the communities you work with, if you're in the community health sciences, it's a great responsibility, but it's also a great honor and privilege to be able to do that. And I think that it's an even greater honor and privilege for those who get to work in an institution like the King George's Medical University and like our University of Manitoba that have also a mandate for training, for research, and also for providing technical guidance to our colleagues who are out in practice and providing health services, and also for those who are setting health policy and planning health services. And for those who are trying to develop new technologies, whether they be biomedical technologies or drugs. So we have an enormous opportunity working in an academic health center to contribute even more, because we add to our clinical responsibilities, we add the responsibilities of learning and training and providing technical guidance to health systems. And I think that as we think about this momentous day, it's a momentous day for us coming from the University of Manitoba. We've been working, I first came to Lucknow and UP, I think, 2013. I'd known India, I'd worked in India, I'd worked in Rajasthan and Karnataka and Maharashtra quite a bit before. But coming to UP, it's a completely different environment. The scale is huge. The history is rich. The food is fantastic. But we weren't really sure. I wasn't sure 12 years ago where we would be this far hence. And I think that over the years, our wonderful team at the UP Technical Support Unit, and then a really important and growing collaboration with the King George's Medical University has really amplified our opportunities to develop partnerships, to learn, and also to try to contribute to this. In learning about and getting to know the wonderful people and the excellence at the King George's Medical University, we saw the opportunity as an apical institution to really transform the quality of clinical care across the whole state. And so bringing in a regional resource and training center where the King George's Medical University is now mentoring medical colleges across the entire state to provide better quality of care for people in district and sub-district health facilities. It's just an amazing contribution. But there's many more things that we can do, and I think that that's what we're looking forward to. So we hope that the next decade is going to be even more, have more impact and be more exciting, because we also see opportunities for us to start developing an ecosystem of learning between our institutions, with other institutions, and learning with communities and with the patients that we see every day. And so our institution is extremely grateful for the opportunity to develop a long-term partnership with this university. And I think based on our wonderful experiences to date, we know that this is going to be very enriching and very, very important for us. We can pledge that we will be here. We can pledge that we will be committed to this partnership. We'll be committed to partnership as colleagues, as co-learners, and I think that that's one thing that you can count on from all of our wonderful faculty. We have all of the main leadership from our university here, and I'm sure they'll express this themselves, but I can tell you that behind the scenes, they're extremely committed to supporting this kind of a partnership. They're very enthusiastic about being part of a global partnership that will accelerate our knowledge and have a great impact. So this is a wonderful event that I could not have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Blanchard. May I also request the dignitaries on the dais to kindly take their seats in the front row with the audience so that we can proceed with the presentations. I now request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Padam Shri Professor Sonia Nityanand Ma'am, to kindly present an overview of KGMU, its academic legacy and contributions to healthcare.
University of Manitoba. Yeah. Dr. Benarok, Dr. Nickerson, Dr. Lavie, Dr. Blanchard, Dr. Becker, all the esteemed members from the UP Technical Support Unit, John and Dr. Vasanta and all the others, all the deans from the university. I can see all the deans sitting here. All the heads of the departments, all the collaborators who are already engaged in collaboration with the University of Manitoba, and some of the students. We could only invite a few because there's a limit to the hall. So first of all, to the team from Manitoba, a very warm welcome to all of you and a good morning to everyone else. It's indeed a great honor to have this august team from the University of Manitoba, and it's also a moment of great joy to be entering into an MoU for many areas with the University of Manitoba. So I'll just begin by giving a little overview about the King George's Medical University. So as I said while we were having coffee together, that it's 121 years old. It started as a college in 1905, and with the progress of the college, it was upgraded into a full university by the Uttar Pradesh government in 2002. You'll be happy to know that in the year 2025, the National Assessment and Accreditation Council of the country, NAC, which assesses the various educational institutions, has given an A++ to KGMU. This is the highest grade that a university or an institute gets by NAC. This was awarded on 8th of August, 2025. The National Institutional Ranking Framework 2025, all the institutions are ranked every year by the NIRF, and in 2025, in the medical category, we got the 8th rank, and in the dental category, the 7th rank. And overall, in all the state public universities, which includes medical and other universities, we got the 29th rank. This is how the hierarchy of governance of the university is. The chancellor heads the university. She's also the governor of the state of Uttar Pradesh. And then we have the executive council, which takes all policy decisions, the university court, then the vice chancellor, and then we have a pro vice chancellor. She's sitting with us, the finance officer, the registrar. The registrar is also here. The controller of examination, dean of student welfare, all the 4 deans of the different faculties, and then the heads of the departments. So today we have gathered, all these people are there in the audience today. I would say one of the distinctiveness of the KGMU governance is that our chancellor takes a very deep interest in all her universities. She's our guide, she's our inspiration, she has periodic reviews, and that has resulted in 9 universities of the state getting a NAC A2+, 4 and A+, and another 4 and A, out of the 38 universities of the state. We also have an unwavering support from the UP government. The Honorable Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, and we have 2 ministers of medical education, 1 cabinet minister, Mr. Brijesh Pathak, and 1 the Minister of State for Medical Education, Mr. Mayankeshwar Saran Singh. So they are behind the university in terms of the funding. And on the right side, I have tried to make the bar diagrams which depict how the funding over the years has grown. And in fact, yesterday there was an announcement for the fresh budget, and I have not been able to incorporate it, but that's gone up further. So the UP government gives us a very good financial support for the infrastructure, salaries, and the equipments. Another distinctiveness about our governance is a decentralized governance. We have various authorities with different members who take decisions. For example, on the left side, if you see the Executive Council, the University Court, the Academic Council, the Finance Committee, the boards of all the different 4 faculties, etc. Another distinctiveness of the governance is the participative governance. Together we decide, together we deliver. So we have a very active Students' Council, a Teachers' Association, an Employees' Association, and the outcome is a collaborative policy shaping evolution of policies and improvements. So this is the hierarchy of the academic governance. We have the Dean of the Medical Sciences, Dean Academics, Professor Virendra Atam, who's sitting here with us. We have the Dean Dental, Dr. G.K. Singh, who's also sitting with us. The Dean Nursing, Professor Amita Pandey, she's on leave because of her daughter's wedding. And Dean Paramedical Sciences, Dr. K.K. Singh, who's again with us. So their matters go to the different faculties, then to the Academic Council, and finally to the Executive Council for decision. We have 61 specialities, 52 medical and 9 dental. So you can see almost all super specialities, almost all of them, all the broad specialities, and 9 of the dental specialities. And those which are highlighted are those which have come up in the last 2-3 years. We have a flagship dedicated Department of Medical Education. It started as a unit as per the National Medical Council norms, but very soon it was upgraded into a nodal center. Since February 2023, 4 faculty development programs and 26 colleges are affiliated to it. So it takes care of the different faculty development programs, but it also runs a self-initiated course which is known as MHP, Masters in Health Professional Education, with 15 seats per year for the KGMU faculty and 15 for external faculty. So these are the undergraduate seats per year. Undergraduate medical is 250, dental is 70 per year, BSc, the undergraduate nursing is 118, and the bachelors in paramedical sciences, which we have recently started, are 55 per year. So a total of 493 per year. And then we have the various postgraduate seats, which include MDMS, which is just after your basic medical degree, which is called MBBS in India, 373 per year in 2025. This is the dental, which is 46 postgraduate seats in dental sciences, 46 per year. And then we also have 3-year super specialty programs after your MD, which is either a DM in medical sciences or MCH in the surgical sciences, which is 99 per year. The masters in nursing, 55 per year. So a total of 573 per year. It's probably one of the largest numbers in the country. Our total faculty strength is 543, 415 medical, 66 dental, 37 nursing, and 25 paramedical. And the nursing staff is about 3,000, and the paramedical staff is about 1,200. I just wanted to highlight here, these are some of the very important flagship programs of the university. One is, because we are a teaching training institute, we have a dedicated Center for Advanced Skill Development. And it is probably the first and only site in the state of Uttar Pradesh which conducts the ATLS, the Advanced Trauma Life Support, and the ATCN training, and it's accredited by the American College of Surgeons. And what we are now in the process is to set up a surgical simulation center, which we call as the wet lab. And the Sun Pharma, which is one of the leading pharmaceutical industries in the country, has given a commitment of giving funds for constructing it. And through the government, we've got funds for acquiring all this specialized equipment. So we'll soon develop a wet lab. And the technical expertise will come from Medical and Minimal Access Surgery Training Center in Mumbai called the IMAST. As I was talking to you over coffee, that we have a very robust body donation program. I can see the head of the anatomy sitting here. So we have a cadaveric lab for training our students, our residents, our junior faculty for surgical procedures on these cadavers. And this is a very active lab and one of its kind in the country. And we are also now going to start cadaveric robotic training. A robo has been committed to be installed in this cadaveric lab. So this is the infrastructure overview. Sorry. The whole university is spread over 145 acres. Total number of buildings are 174. And you can see a large part of the architecture is what is called as the Saracenic architecture, which is a hybrid of Gothic and Mughal architecture. These are all the hospitals and allied buildings For example, the Gandhi Memorial and Hospital, which is on this complex, a Queen Mary's Hospital who takes care of maternal and neonatal health, a chest hospital, a rehab and artificial limb center, a level 1 trauma center, cardiology and cardiac surgery block, a Shatabdi Hospital phase 1 and phase 2, which houses all the super specialty departments, then the dental block, old and new, and recently we have a dedicated super specialty orthopedic building which finished its construction in 2025. Under one roof, a department of orthopedics, sports medicine and pediatrics, orthopedics, and a bone bank. We also have a lot of teaching facilities here. So the Kalam Center is a 6-storied ICT-enabled classes. It has ICT-enabled classes, 7 lecture theaters, video conferencing rooms, seminar halls, multi-purpose halls, with an overall sitting strength of almost 5,000. And we have the Atal Bihari Vajpayee. It's again a very beautiful center. It's a convention center, very large, with large halls for any kind of conferences or large meetings. The bed strength in KGMU is 4,250, and the OPD fall is about 9,000 to 10,000 patients per day. Sometimes it even goes up beyond this. We have about 83 OTs spread over the university. These are some of the specialized services. I can't list all of them because of the paucity of time, but this is our surgical robotic systems. The indigenous robo is SSI Mantra 3. We have 2 of them. And as I said, 2 days back, we also got a Da Vinci. We got it a few days back, but we started the surgeries on the Da Vinci robotic surgical system 2 days back. And now, this year, we are getting an orthopedic surgery robotic system. The university is engaged in transplants, though it's kind of not that many. Liver, we've done 43. Renal, we did initially, then there was a shutdown. Now, the renal transplant program has again been started since 2023, and 15 transplants have been done, 2024, sorry. Bone marrow, 18, and now with the new bone marrow transplant unit, as I said, we'll get into haplotransplants also. And corneal is a large number, which is done 150 per year. There are some specialized patient care services. Again, I can't list, but I thought some things which may be of interest is a center of excellence for drug-resistant TB care, because India is very committed to eliminating tuberculosis. And a state-level lab, I can see the head of the Department of Microbiology sitting here, for doing TB testing, especially the drug-resistant TB testing. And another nice program which is there in this university is the Mother's Milk Bank, where till date about 2,000 mothers have donated milk and about 1,500 babies have already received milk. So it's called the Dhatri Amrit Kalash, a milk bank. Some special clinics, because we're very sensitive to the marginalized populations. So we have a rainbow clinic, which is a gender diverse clinic, kind of a multidisciplinary clinic for the LGBTQIA community, and where different departments collaborate and run it: the medicine, endocrinology, plastic surgery, psychiatry, and dermatology. And the gynec department also runs a very nice adolescent clinic, because somewhere down the line, we realized that there is a lot of adolescent problems. So, research and innovations, I know that's of great interest. We have Dr. Hardeep Malhotra, who is the Dean Research. Unfortunately, his father died in the early hours of morning, so he's not able to come for this function today. But the two Vice Deans are with us, Dr. Neeraj and Dr. Sujita. We have a robust research policy, a research committee which reviews all the intramural projects, an institutional ethics committee, which is registered with the Drug Controller General of India, an institutional animal ethics committee, and then the others like a PG thesis subcommittee, adverse drug reaction monitoring committee, and a PhD guidelines committee. This is something I thought I must highlight, that in the last 2-3 years, we are giving a lot of focus to research incentives. The first is an intramural seed grant. You know, from the funding that we get from the UP government, there is one head which is called the contingency head. So we've decided to earmark some of that money for giving intramural research grants, and not just to the faculty, but also to the nursing faculty and to students and postgraduate residents, to kind of encourage them into research. We have a lot of research showcase awards in various categories to encourage our faculty and residents to be recognized. This is one of the few institutions in the country which gives a learning resource allowance to each and every faculty, which is quite a bit, 1.5 lakhs per year. And every faculty is allowed 4 national conferences and 1 international conference per year, which is funded by the university. The same way we encourage our students into research by various incentives. There are a number of central research facilities in the university, one of them being a Center for Advanced Research, which has dedicated faculty members, PhD students, a genomics, a cytogenetics, and a stem cell facility. An institutional animal house, which houses approximately 500 small animals and has these IVC cages. And into 2024, it was approved for the in-house breeding of small animals. The Department of Health Research, on the left, you can see, has given KGMU a multidisciplinary research unit, which has in the last 2 years been graded in the top 3 MRUs of the country. And finally, in 2025, it has been declared as a Center of Research Excellence. Lately, the Department of Health Research, Government of India, has also recognized KGMU as a technical lens. KGMU also functions as one of these centers for clinical trials in the country. And with great pride, I can say that it is also a partner institution for the Cochrane Network, Cochrane India Network, one of the 9 institutions. And some of the other novel research programs includes Saransh from the Department of Health Research, which is on systematic reviews and networking support in health. We have a virus research and diagnostic laboratory, VRDL, which is again funded by the Government of India. And both in 2024 and 2025, it has received the best award for both in the category of public health measures as well as excellence in scientific research. And there is also an advanced mycology diagnostic center and a genetic diagnostic unit for inherited diseases. Talking of innovations, so we're trying to synergize healthcare innovations and entrepreneurship. And that program is called the School of International Biodesign. It's in collaboration with IIT Kanpur and the Department of Biotechnology, Government of India. And the whole idea is to take 10 fellows per year, give them a clinical immersion, and then they go back to IIT Kanpur for developing the medtech products. So in this whole 3 years which have passed, actually 2 years, after 2 years, we've got 5 startups, which I have listed on the right side. A touchless human-machine interactive system, a proctoscope, innovative smart bra pads to detect breast lumps over time, a functional electrical simulator, and a D-scope. These are the patents, copyrights which have been published over the years, the publications which have been steadily increasing over the years. We are trying to encourage the faculty to get extramural research grants, and that has also been steadily increasing over the years. And as I told you, that we have also started a process of giving generously intramural grants, small grants, to do the preliminary work for faculty, as well as to resident doctors and undergraduate students. For the undergraduate students, this year we have started, last year, 2025, we have started what is known as an undergraduate consortium for research excellence, CORE, UG CORE. This is purely for the undergraduate students. So by and for the students, with 4 essential verticals: research methodology, medical writing, artificial intelligence, and meta-analysis. Our faculty, some of our faculty is recognized, this is the 5th consecutive year they have been recognized in the Stanford list of top 2% scientists. 12 of them. So moving on to our outreach activities now. So we have adopted 10 villages, which are listed on the left side. And we have a lot of initiatives in these 10 villages in the form of things that I've listed: educational workshops, health screenings, community engagement, awareness camps, and support programs. We have our own community radio station, which is called Radio Gunj. And it's probably the first such community radio station started by any medical institution. And it also does a lot of outreach programs. We're able to do a lot of outreach work through this own dedicated community radio station. We have a very active telemedicine unit, which in fact is funded, it's partnered with NHM, the BMGF, and the JAPIGO. And it's a unit which has given the highest number of teleconsultations on the eSanjeevani platform in the country. And now it has been recognized by the UP government. It's been granted the status of a center of excellence for telemedicine. So a very good way of reaching out to the periphery. We have 2 mobile screening vans, a dental van, as well as a mobile cancer screening van. So they go into the peripheral parts of the state of Uttar Pradesh for dental screening and treatment to some extent, as well as for cancer screening. The rest of the community outreach programs, which actually are in collaboration with the UP Technical Support Unit, like the RRTC program, the CMONC, the Data Sciences Center, etc., we will be taking up in a separate presentation, which will be done by Dr. Anju Agarwal. So I will end here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. I would now like to invite Dr. Michael Benarosh, President and Vice Chancellor, University of Manitoba, to kindly present an overview of his university. We welcome you, sir.
And I just press here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Honorable Vice Chancellor, thank you so much for the invitation. It's truly an honor for our university to be here today and to look at more ways of partnering with your university. We look forward to developing this partnership and growing our work together. And I think that in listening to your presentation, there's many similarities and many ways in which we cross over, and then others in which I think we can support each other to grow as we move forward. So our university is located in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Now, that is in the center of Canada. I will just tell you that when I left last Sunday on my flight, it was minus 25 degrees, and there was this much snow on the ground. So a little bit different, but we are a university in the center of Canada. We are the largest university within our province, and we are a comprehensive university. So a little bit unlike your university, it's more of the North American model where we are a university that is comprehensive. So our campuses, we are a campus that has about 679 acres of land, 155 buildings, on 2 separate campuses, 11 libraries, and as you can see here, one of the pictures, this is our main campus. We have more than one campus. In terms of health sciences, our nursing faculty is on this campus, but our medical school, our dental school, pharmacy, and rehabilitation science is on another one of our campuses. So this is our main campus. Our university was established in 1877, so we have just turned 149 years old, and we will be celebrating our 150th anniversary next year. We started as an agricultural college. We are in an agricultural rich part of Canada. It remains so to this day, but we've grown from the agricultural college. We're one of the top universities within the rankings within Canada. And we're a leading global research university, and the key areas of research are in fact public health, climate, technology, satellite technology in particular, and we have a large Indigenous population within our province, about 20% of our provincial population. So a big focus. We have over a $7 billion impact within our economy in our province, and we are the largest research institution within our province. And in fact, our university generates more than half of the research dollars for our entire province, and our Faculty of Health Sciences generates over 50% of all the research even within our university. So it is certainly our largest research center. As a university, we have over 250 programs of study, and this is a little out of date. It says 31,000 students. We are at about 32,000 students now, about 20% of those being international, and 10% of our students are Indigenous. Many from underrepresented communities within our province, many from remote parts of our province, in particular, the northern part of our province. As a university, we now own over 400 patents covering 300 University of Manitoba developed technologies, and this continues to grow. We have a goal as a university to be net zero in terms of sustainability, and so we've been working on that. In terms of our physical spaces, this is something that, so in the background here, you in fact see our health science campus here where our medical school is located, our dental school, our pharmacy school, our rehabilitation science. We are building a new building in this part to house the expansion of medical students within our university. In our Western Canada, we are the university to have received the most Rhodes Scholars, over 100 Rhodes Scholars at our university. And we provide over $40 million of financial awards to our students. And we are the only research university, intensive university, part of what's called the U15, which are the 15th largest medical universities in Canada, all of these with very large research focus. And you know, these 15 universities receive close to 80% of all the research dollars in Canada. We have set some strategic priorities recently for our university, focusing our research and our education. However, as a comprehensive university within our province, we have a mandate to provide education across a number of different sectors. And so we've developed a new strategic plan. The Truth and Reconciliation Framework is a framework for us to work with our Indigenous communities within our province. This is a very important mandate for our provincial government. In fact, our premier is the first Indigenous premier in Manitoba, and he's been leading the way. And we've developed a strategic research plan with a goal to expand our footprint. And a large part of that is to become more international in focus. And relationships like this one are part of what we are trying to work on. Like your university, we have a commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, accessibility. And we've developed a large, as I said, sustainability and climate action plan. We have three fundamental commitments as a university: creating knowledge that matters, and that's refocusing our research. Though our research plan talks about fundamental research, we are looking at refocusing a lot of our research to creating knowledge and dealing with challenges that our world is facing today and that our country and our province is facing. Empowering learners. We've had a real focus on our learner community and our students, and reimagining how we engage, not just with our community, but how we engage with the world has been a very important part of the focus and of our institution. And so we have been investing very heavily in research. We are investing heavily in research chairs. The Canadian government has just introduced a large new research chair program, and our university is going to be participating in that. We are working to collaborate across not only our institution, but across the globe to identify high impact solutions. I saw that entrepreneurship was part of what you're working with IIT Kanpur. We just visited and signed an MoU with IIT Kanpur. Again, interested in entrepreneurship and solutions. We have a new network across our university, which we call Idea Start. As a university, I think sometimes we start those ideas and we hope to be able to nurture them to find launching of companies. We're advancing in terms of empowering our learning, creating systems that will lead to greater improvements in outcomes for our students and increases in opportunities for innovative learning. And we've done a large investment to strengthen our teaching and support services around our university. And as I said, developing, reimagining how we engage in terms of our relationships across the world. And our commitment to truth and reconciliation, which is our commitment to our Indigenous communities, it's to integrate their knowledge into our ways of being. And we've done that. We say we do this with two-eyed learning. One eye is Western and one eye is Indigenous. We've been doing a large effort across the institution to incorporate Indigenous learning, Indigenous ways across all the spectrum, from sciences to social sciences to humanities to health. And what we want to do is create a sense of what is dependent upon our Indigenous community becoming larger players within the province. In terms of our research areas, it's built on 7 areas of specialization that you see there. You see, as I told you, it was minus 25 when I came last week. So although that's in the southern part of the province, in the northern part of the province, it was much colder. And we are very close to the Arctic. And so Arctic research has been a big part of what we're doing. And an important part of our research has been work on sea ice. And we have a research station in northern Manitoba that's been examining sea ice, but we've been part of some of the leading studies across the world. It's an important part of what we do at our university. Climate action, sustainability. So health and well-being, which incorporates our Faculty of Health Sciences, is one of our research priorities. And we have focus within there. Water and food security. Canada has an abundance of fresh water, but we're also on both our coasts. We have ports. In northern Manitoba, we are on the Hudson's Bay, which links into the Northwest Passage, which is again another waterway. And this is an important part of what we're doing as a university. I think I've lost some of it here. Sorry, excuse me. I will go back. So these are our areas of research. I will say here are our schools and faculties. So you can see that it's quite extensive, from agriculture, which remains a large part, architecture, School of Art, Faculty of Art. We have a very large School of Business, Faculty of Education. We have a large Faculty of Engineering, which is a core part, Faculty of Environment. And here you see the Rady Faculty of Health Sciences, which has interdisciplinary health, health sciences and health studies, School of Dental Hygiene, Gerald Nisnik College of Dentistry, Max Rady College of Medicine, a College of Nursing, which has midwifery and nursing, a College of Pharmacy, and a College of Rehabilitation Sciences and Respiratory Therapy, Kinesiology, a Faculty of Law, a Faculty of Music, Faculty of Science, and a Faculty of Social Work. So fairly extensive and broad-based across the institution. This is just some of our field work that we're doing, and you can see there digging ice. We were actually, one of our projects recently dug the deepest down in Greenland to find what is happening actually millions of years ago underneath the surface. International exchange is a big part of what we do, and of course co-op placements. As I said, we are home to a diverse population. We have 221 alumni in 134 countries. Internationalization is a big part of what we do. As you can see, being in the middle of a very large country, you can get isolated. And we have to avoid isolation as a country and isolation as a city, and our university has been at the center of this. And just a little bit about contacts within our university. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir, for that insight. May I now invite Professor Anju Agarwal, ma'am, Head of the Department, Obstetrics and Gynecology, KGMU, and Vice Dean Academics, to kindly share an overview of the existing collaborative work with University of Manitoba.
So So a very good afternoon, honorable dignitaries from University of Manitoba, from KGMU, UPTSU, and dear students. So I'll be walking you through the collaborative work which our university is conducting, mainly through UPTSU. Honorable VC ma'am has already walked you through our rich history, though I realize we are a younger university than the University of Manitoba. And we are, as Dr. James already mentioned, we are catering to a huge population, with the population of our state being equal to the combined population of Brazil and Ecuador. And besides our work in medical education and research, KGMU is also committed to capacity building interventions in healthcare. And that is where we are collaborating the most with the UPTSU. We are conducting many trainings. The first and foremost is the Regional Resource Training Center program, which because we realize that the maternal and neonatal mortality rates of our state have been always higher than the rates of the whole of India. So, and one of the main contributing factors was, which we felt, non-availability of comprehensive obstetric and neonatal emergency care. So this RRTC program was conceptualized in 2017 with the aim to reduce the case fatality rate of maternal and newborn complications, to strengthen our first referral units, and to strengthen the knowledge and skills of our peripheral system doctors. So the KGMU structure at present is led by our dynamic Vice Chancellor, Professor Sonia Nityanand. I'm the nodal for the program, and Dr. Smriti Agarwal, who's also here, is the co-nodal. So in 2017, the program started with only 4 medical colleges, covering 25 districts of the state, and KGMU took a lead in developing the resource material for the trainings. And at that time, KGMU was covering 14 peripheral facilities. Thereafter, in phase 2, the number of medical colleges was increased to 8 medical colleges, and KGMU was covering 19 facilities. In phase 3, the program was expanded to cover all the 75 districts of the state, and the number of medical colleges were also enhanced to 16. So KGMU concentrated on 5 facilities, which we are continuing to do in phase 4, when the number of medical colleges has increased to 20 medical colleges. So the training module of RRTC is a bit different from the normal trainings, in that initially we have inducted all the faculty of all the medical colleges in the modules. Thereafter, we have called the FRU doctors for a regional training. And this is followed by an on-site mentoring and monitoring, which is an important component because we go to the peripheral facilities, we observe how the doctors are performing, we help them if they are facing any problems, and we also do an assessment of these doctors by the OSCE method. And the doctors who are scoring less than 70% at this OSCE, they are called back to the medical college for a refresher training for further reinforcing their knowledge and skills. So this is showing a little bit about the magnitude of the trainings. We have trained 268 medical college faculty in 2022. And recently, when 4 more medical colleges were included, we have further trained 40 more medical college faculty. Besides that, the peripheral doctors have also been trained by us. And when we look at the change in the 5 district hospitals which KGMU is covering at present, we find a marked improvement in the technical scores of both the facility and the doctors who are posted at these facilities. So we find an increase in the management of some of the important obstetric problems like postpartum hemorrhage, eclampsia, increased availability of cesarean section, increased availability of blood transfusion services, and a reduction in the referral outs, which is all a very positive outcome of the trainings. So these are further some charts showing the improvement with our trainings. Besides the trainings, we have also tried to strengthen referrals through this program by creating interactive WhatsApp groups where the doctors can discuss the management and give complete pre-referral information before they send the patient. We conduct regular feedback meetings, again liaised by UPTSU with the government to orient them regarding the problems being faced at the facilities. And we have got a very good response from the government of Uttar Pradesh, who has been very supportive in all our activities. We have conducted experience sharing and cross-learning programs between medical colleges. The program is planned to be extended into the sub-district level. And recently we have developed a notebook on CTG monitoring, and we are going to introduce it soon in our RRTC trainings. And also to further reinforce the on-site mentoring, we are also going to include a virtual training platform so that the mentoring can be more frequent. Again, for experience sharing, we have visited the UPTSU and KGMU team, visited the Singapore General Hospital and Simulation Center last year, which again was very fruitful. So we find that as a result of the RRTC program, there has been a good collaboration between the medical education program in the form of medical colleges and the peripheral health system. And UPTSU has played a huge role in licensing these trainings. And the capacity of the peripheral doctors has definitely improved. But our trainings are not limited to the RRTC trainings. Other important trainings which we are conducting are the comprehensive emergency obstetric and newborn care and the life-saving anesthesia skills. So there was a paucity of doctors able to perform cesarean section in the periphery. So these 6 months training were conceptualized for undergraduate doctors, where they are taught how to perform cesarean section and how to give anesthesia. And both the trainees are posted together as a buddy-buddy so that there is availability of cesarean section facilities at even the far-reaching out facilities. As PPH is an important contributor to maternal mortality, so we have conducted multiple trainings for management of PPH in collaboration with UPTSU, MGH, and FICO. Maternal anemia is a very big problem in our country, with almost 15% of our pregnant women being anemic. So we have developed this book led by Honorable VC Ma'am, who herself is a hematologist. So she gave us very good inputs for management of anemia. And now we are in the process of starting our trainings on anemia in the peripheral facilities. The other trainings which we are doing, we are training the general surgeons again to do cesarean section to improve the availability of cesarean section. We are training obstetricians to perform, not obstetricians, basically even MBBS doctors to be able to perform basic obstetric ultrasound at the periphery. Besides this, we are again doing a 6 months training in ultrasound procedures, again for doctors of the provincial medical services. Under VC Ma'am's guidance, we realize that nursing is a very important pillar of all medical services. And we have expanded our RRTC training program to include the nurses. And now we have developed their booklet. We have trained the faculty of our nursing college in KGMU, who have already conducted trainings of all the nursing staff of the 5 district of hospitals affiliated to KGMU. And they have also conducted on-site mentoring visits as the doctors. And this again has been appreciated greatly by the peripheral nurses. We'll be able to see the impact in coming days because we have only recently completed the mentoring visits. For the newborns, we have conducted CPAP trainings, and CPAP is an important part of the mentoring visit where the doctors are taught on the machines how to use the CPAP machine for improvement of neonatal outcomes. Based on the RRTC model, the STEMI care network has been developed for early diagnosis and management of ST elevation, myocardial infarction cases. So that again has been initiated to improve the outcome of myocardial infarction, women and men, in fact, for better survival. So our collaboration with the UPTSU is not limited to trainings. We are also collaborating in research with them. First and foremost, an important project is a post-marketing analysis of Centroman. Now, Centroman, as you may be knowing, is the only non-hormonal, non-steroidal contraceptive drug taken once a week. And we are very proud that it was developed in Lucknow by Honorable VC Ma'am's father in CDRI Lucknow. And we are doing this project under 2 arms. One is a retrospective arm, which has already started. And you can see that ma'am is taking a direct interest in the program, and she is also participating in the review meetings. Besides this, we are developing a data science centers on the lines of MCHP at University of Manitoba for streamlining the data collection. This is the MoU which was signed, and 2 pilot cases have been selected for the initial, the pregnancy referral analysis and the measles and SSPE surveillance. So the work plan has been created. The first installment has been released, and advertisement for human resource has been put in, and we'll be starting the work soon. Both the projects have been submitted for ethical clearance. We are also running a postdoctoral fellowship program for program science-based research. So Dr. Smita Kumar, who's also here with us, and whom ma'am mentioned as being one of the high contributors to research, she has been appointed on this, and she'll be working on a community-based health assessment to strengthen reproductive, maternal, newborn, child health services in regions prone to heavy metal toxicity. During the COVID times, collaborative study was done on COVID serological surveys, and these are some of the publications which came out. Few projects have been developed based on artificial intelligence. One is the artificial intelligence for detection of cataract, and the other is for fetal monitoring. So for detection of cataract, it was run in our Department of Ophthalmics and Professor Abjeet, who's also our Pro-Vice Chancellor. And it has been found to be very useful. A publication has come out of it. And it is planned by ICMR to take it up for a larger study. And the fetal monitoring one, because we all understand that fetal monitoring is not being done as frequently and as rigorously as it should. So this AI application has been developed to facilitate fetal monitoring and to give alerts that monitoring is to be done what is the trend of the fetal heart rate, and when to take action. So when we look at the impact of these trainings, we find that the maternal mortality of our state has definitely declined from 197 to 141 per 1 lakh live births, though that is still very high and we need to go a long way. Neonatal mortality has also declined from 32 to 26. Further data are available. There is better availability of emergency services around the state. There has been a good rapport built up between the medical college faculty and the peripheral doctors. And AI tools and research will definitely add betterment of the health services. So this is a graph showing the MMR and the NMR trends. And we are happy to share that in 2024, KGMU was given an award for the Training and Skill Development Initiative of the Year by the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry for the RRTC program. The RRTC project has been shared on various platforms, including the conference of the International Federation of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. So we look together forward to a greater working together, because coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I may now request Dr. Marisa Becker, University of Manitoba, to share her perspectives on the future collaborations between KGMU and their university.
Good afternoon. Honorable Vice Chancellor, President Benarosh, esteemed colleagues, guests, students, it really is such an honor to be here today. We've heard from Jamie this morning about the context and some of the reflections on the partnership so far. We've heard from Professor Anju just now about what we have been working together on. And I have the opportunity to speak a little bit about some of what we see as the way forward and what we can build on from this really special collaboration and partnership. And this vision for the going forward is really guided by the Honorable VC's vision and guidance, as well as the leadership from the University of Manitoba, Jamie, John, and the team here. As you've heard, the University of Manitoba and KGMU have been collaborating on multiple fronts over the past few years. And this collaboration has played not only a pivotal role in strengthening the partnership between our two institutions, but it's also in enhancing the capacity of Uttar Pradesh's health system. And we've just heard such lovely examples ranging from clinical mentoring through to research and to collaboration on innovations, digital and AI and others. As the University of Manitoba is moving forward to enter into the next phase of technical assistance to the government of UP, this is an important opportunity to deepen this partnership. We believe that KGMU can continue to be a strategic and core partner in the institutionalization of clinical excellence in the next stage of the work of technical assistance that we're embarking on with the government of UP. Together, we can develop clinical, programmatic, and policy roadmaps to address critical public health issues. There's a strong opportunity to expand the collaborations through multi-departmental engagement, including obstetrics and pediatrics, infectious diseases and neurology, cardiology, to name just a few. And we've seen some of the examples of those partnerships so far. There's the opportunity to transition existing mentoring platforms like the RRTC into centers of excellence anchored here at KGMU. And KGMU has really played such a pivotal role in the implementation and the successes of the RRTC that we've just heard about from Professor Anju. KGMU and U of M together can help in the faster translation of innovation into public health impact and policy adoption. We are very excited and remain deeply committed to the partnership on the Data Science Center. This can be a permanent institutional unit to further support and strengthen the government of UP in providing data for decision-making for public health action. Through the Data Science Center, a multidisciplinary team combining clinicians, epidemiologists, statisticians, data scientists can come together to co-develop policy-facing analytics, embedded research, and knowledge products to support the government of UP. We also really strongly believe that there's an opportunity for extensive collaboration on educational initiatives, whether they're joint degree programs and certification programs, whether they're executive public health and health leadership courses focused around program science, embedded research, implementation research, clinical trials, digital health, AI. There's also the opportunity to take this joint supervision that we're just embarking on around postdoctoral fellowships to expand that and strengthen that so that we can together do more joint supervision of MD, PhD students, of more postdoctoral fellows, and create pathways for high impact research. These future engagements will elevate the partnership between the University of Manitoba and KGMU to ensure that it becomes a flagship model for innovation and for impact for public health in UP. On behalf of the University of Manitoba, we are so grateful for this partnership, and we are looking forward to continuing our work together with such an esteemed university. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Marisa. We now move on to the most significant moment of the occasion, signing of the Memorandum of Understanding, marking the formalization of our institutional request. So a big congratulations to both the universities. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. And thank you all the dignitaries. We now have a short lunch break and we shall join again same place after a short break of 30 minutes for an interesting and intriguing talk by Dr. Peter Nickerson. So just A very good afternoon and welcome back to the post-lunch session. I shall request the dignitaries to kindly take their seats on the dais. Dr. Michael Benarosh, the President and Vice Chancellor of the University of Manitoba. Professor Sonia Nityanand Ma'am, Vice Chancellor, KGMU. Please kindly take your seats on the dais. Dr. Peter Nickerson, Dean, Faculty of Health Sciences, University of Manitoba. Our Pro-Vice Chancellor, Professor Abjeet Kaur Ma'am. And Dr. John Anthony, Senior Project Director and Lead, UPTSU. May I now request our Pro-Vice Chancellor, KGMU, Professor Abjeet Kaur Ma'am, to kindly introduce our guest speaker for the day, Dr. Peter Nickerson.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the post-lunch session. It's my honor and privilege to introduce Dr. Peter Nickerson, Dean and Vice Provost, Health Sciences. He is a prominent physician and researcher in the field of organ transplantation, was appointed Vice Provost, Health Sciences, Dean of the Rady Faculty of Health Sciences, and Dean of the Max Rady College of Medicine at the University of Manitoba. Dr. Nickerson, a distinguished professor of internal medicine and immunology, has also served as Dean Research of the Rady Faculty of Health Sciences. He is a clinical nephrologist at Health Sciences Center and a medical consultant at the Transplant Immunology Laboratory at Shared Health. His current roles also include Medical Director of Transplant Manitoba, Flynn Family Chair in Renal Transplantation at the University of Manitoba, and Medical Advisor Organ Transplantation at Canadian Blood Services. Internationally renowned in his field, he directs a research program focused on mechanisms underlying transplant rejection, non-invasive techniques of diagnosing kidney transplant rejection, and health system design to improve access to transplants and outcomes for patients. He has published more than 190 research papers, reports, reviews, and book chapters, and has received millions of dollars in research grants and industry-sponsored clinical trials. His work has significantly enhanced patients' access to transplants, reduced their risk of organ rejection, and improved their quality of life. Naturally, awards came his way. Dr. Nickerson's numerous awards include Fellowship of the Canadian Academy of Health Sciences, the Clinical Science Established Investigator Award from the American Society of Transplantation, the Medal for Research Excellence from Kidney Foundation of Canada, and a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Canadian Society of Transplantation. May I request you for a huge round of applause for this. In 2021, he was honored with the Dr. John M. Bowman Memorial Winnipeg RH University Institute Foundation Award in recognition of his outstanding research accomplishments. Truly humbled while reading your CV.
If the dignitaries feel comfortable, they can be seated in the audience for the presentation.
I want to thank you for the very kind introduction. That was very lovely. Honorable Vice Chancellor and President Benarosh, it's a pleasure to be here at KGMU. I've really enjoyed the last several days being in Uttar Pradesh and in Lucknow and learning of all the great work that's going on here in collaboration with the Institute for Global Public Health at the University of Manitoba. I was asked today to share some of my own research, which is really around understanding how to try and improve outcomes in organ transplantation, in particular in kidney transplantation. I have three objectives, but I'm actually going to just focus on the first two. And there is a PDF that I've given to the organizers that they can share, and it will have some of the additional slides that I've just cut out because I don't have enough time to go through it all. But maybe just to set the stage, what's happened in the field of kidney transplantation is clinicians have escalated the amount of immunosuppression we're giving to our patients. And if you're in North America, and in particular if you're in the US, almost everybody's getting depletional induction therapy. So we're giving antibodies that are going to take away the T cells and the B cells temporarily. And then we're giving triple immunosuppression with a calcineurin inhibitor, tacrolimus, and cell cycle inhibitor, mycophenolate, along with steroids. And then what clinicians do is they monitor kidney function. They watch the creatinine and they see if it's stable or not. And they'll check the drug levels. And that's about what we do in transplant. And then later, if the creatinine's going up and we diagnose rejection, well, we say we're under immunosuppressing, we're going to give more drug. If an infection happens, we say, oh, oops, we gave too much drug. And if there's toxicity like neurotoxicity, tremor, or nephrotoxicity, then we know we have off-target effects. So we're very reactive, and we start off giving everybody the same amount of drug at the beginning. But what we know is that humans are not all the same. We are very heterogeneous. So our challenge as clinicians is to give the right therapy to the right recipient or to the right patient. And we do that through risk assessments. And so typically what we do pre-transplant is we look in solid organ transplant, do you have antibodies against the HLA of the donor? And if you do, we say you have memory, and we try and avoid those. We don't do those transplants, or we tend not to do those transplants. And then we have what we call a primary immune response. You've done a transplant, and the immune response arises against the donor HLA. And what we know historically is that HLA mismatch for DR, we know that race, and we know that recipient age all play a role in who's at risk for developing a rejection of their organ. And there's guidelines for doing this assessment, but the real question is, do we actually use that information? And the answer is, in two large multi-center studies in North America, they asked the question, the variation in how we use our drugs in the clinic, how much of that is based on the risk profile of the recipient? And what they found was either the induction agent or the maintenance agent, that this was very little. It was only 11% or 5%. And in fact, most of the variation in how you practiced was based on what center you were in. So clinicians tend to practice the way the group practices. And there's the philosophy of the group, and they all believe it the same, and so they all do the same thing. So we don't really use risk assessment as part of our clinical practice. We just give whatever we do in our center. What we know when we've done multivariate analysis looking at death-centered graft loss or all-cause graft loss is that rejection is still a big problem in transplantation. The first cellular rejection or an antibody-mediated rejection or ABMR, these have a high hazard of leading to death-centered graft loss, and they're also associated with all-cause graft loss. So the prevention of rejection is critical to getting long-term graft survival after a kidney transplant. So why do you lose a graft? Well, you lose a graft because you've lost function over time, and that's largely because you've developed scarring, so you get interstitial fibrosis, or the filters, the glomeruli, get scarred. That can be because you have recurrent glomerulonephritis occurring in the kidney. That's not that common, but it can occur. More commonly, you have an immune process, a T-cell mediated rejection or an antibody mediated rejection. And they can be both clinical, so the creatinine's gone up and you've diagnosed rejection because you did a biopsy. But what our center showed many years ago from one of our leading researchers, David Rush, who's now retired, was he was biopsying patients regardless of what the kidney function was. And he showed that many patients actually had subclinical rejection in the biopsy when the clinician thought everything was fine because the creatinine was fine. So looking for subclinical rejection has become more and more of a standard of care across the world. So these rejections, if they're not treated properly, can grumble along and become chronic active TCMR or chronic active AMR, leading to loss of organ function and eventually fibrosis and graft failure. The other problem is when you take a kidney out of somebody and you put it into somebody else, that causes an ischemia reperfusion injury. So the tissue is injured just by taking it away from a blood supply. And when you put it back and open up the vascular clamp, you now get reperfusion of the organ, and that causes an inflammatory environment, and that can lead to delayed graft function. If you have an older donor, that may lead to malrepair inside the kidney because the tissues just can't repair themselves the way that a younger tissue would repair itself. So what do? We give drugs. We give drugs to keep the inflammation down or to prevent the immune system from turning on against the graft. The problem is those drugs are toxic. They're toxic to the kidney. The tacrolimus, the CNI, can cause chronic injury to the kidney. We can be, if we over-immunosuppress, get a virus in the kidney called BK virus, which can lead itself to damage of the kidney. And then the other thing that happens with our drugs is they can cause metabolic dysfunction. You're suppressing the immune system, so you can get infection, you can get cancer because you've shut down the cancer surveillance of your immune system. And that's all on the background of comorbidities that patients come with. So patients don't come healthy, they come because they have end-stage renal disease, and that's usually because they have diabetes or they have other autoimmune diseases going on. So the drugs we give are actually toxic to both the patient and to the kidney, and so we should be trying to minimize those. And what happens sometimes is when we're giving these drugs, the patient doesn't like the side effects, so they stop taking it as frequently, and they may or may not tell you about it, or we're seeing toxicity and the clinician starts minimizing them. And when you start minimizing, you're really just taking the brakes off the immune system, and you can get yourself into trouble by getting rejection occurring in the kidney. So the question that we asked ourselves was, can we leverage our HLA mismatch knowledge, the difference of the HLA between the donor and the recipient, to advance a more precision medicine approach to our patients? And we've known, looking at large data sets, both in the US and in Canada, if you look at the various HLA molecules, HLA-A and HLA-B, those mismatches with immunosuppression don't really drive an immune response that strongly. But a class 2 mismatch or an HLA-DR molecule mismatch, as you go from 0 to 1 to 2 mismatches, you actually have a much higher risk of all-cause graft loss because you're higher risk for an immune response and rejection. And that's why in North America, if you get a 0 DR mismatch kidney, you still get points for that. We try to move the allocation of the organs to favor low mismatches. So our question was, could the class 2 mismatch, the DR and the other class 2 molecule, the DQ molecule, could those mismatches be used as what's called a prognostic biomarker to predict who was at higher risk or lower risk of developing rejection? Now, when you start thinking about what's the target, for example, of an antibody that develops against the HLA molecule, the antibody doesn't bind the entire molecule. It binds a very discrete area on the surface of that molecule. And so that's called the paratope-epitope interaction between an antibody targeting its protein on the surface of the HLA molecule. And one of the areas in the central zone, which binds the CDRH3 part of the antibody, is what has been coined the eplet. It's thought that this area is what dials in the specificity of the antibody. And a fellow named René de Quesnoy made a complete make-up term called eplet. You'll never see it anywhere in a textbook. It's just completely fabricated as a word that he created, as clinicians tend to do. But what he did is he developed computational software, and he compared, not at the whole molecule level, but at the molecular level, how many zones of difference exist between the donor's HLA molecule and the recipient's HLA molecule. And if you looked at the degree of difference, you could have a lot of amino acid difference between the donor and the recipient, or you could have very little amino acid differences between the donor and recipient. So you can calculate this. You can actually measure it using this computational software, which is called HLA Matchmaker. So in this diagram, what I'm showing you is that traditionally we look at a donor and a recipient, we say, well, you're a 1-DR molecule mismatch or a 2-DR molecule mismatch, similarly for DQ. But if you looked at it at the molecular level, you could actually see for a 1-DR mismatch, you could have a whole range of potential eplet mismatches. So at the molecular level, it's much more granular, and you can actually look at a whole scale of mismatches. So if you take two recipients, recipient A and recipient B, by the traditional method of saying, how mismatched am I? Recipient B, you say, well, this is a 2-DR mismatch, and recipient A is a 1-DR mismatch. But at the molecular level, it's very obvious that recipient A is way more mismatched to their donor than is recipient B. And the question is, does that matter? So we did multivariate analysis looking at what were the predictors of forming a DR donor-specific antibody or a DQ DSA. And the four things that mattered was recipient age. So as you got older, the likelihood of forming an antibody went down. And we actually learned that during COVID, right? So older people were less likely to form a robust immune response to immunization, for example. So this is something that we've known for many years. Older people have poorer immune responses. If you don't take your drugs, yeah, your hazard goes up. If you're not suppressing the immune system, so you should be developing antibodies. If you're on cyclosporin versus tacrolimus, you're at a higher risk of developing an antibody because cyclosporin is a weaker immunosuppressive as compared to tacrolimus. And then as you start looking at the eplet mismatches, for every 10 eplet mismatches, you could see a marked increase in hazard of developing a DR antibody or a DQ antibody for DQ eplet mismatches. Now, we then wanted to ask the question is, well, is there anything magic about this computational software of eplet mismatching? And so we did a collaboration with the University of Cambridge where they were doing amino acid mismatches, just looking at the actual count of amino acid differences between a donor and a recipient, rather than these discrete areas of what Renee was calling eplets. And what we saw was a high correlation of eplet mismatch with amino acid mismatch. The R-squareds were in the 0.96, 0.95. And then Vasilis Kosmilopoulos, who was in Cambridge, was also looking at the charge of the amino acids and looking at the electrostatic mismatch between donors and recipients. And again, it had a high correlation. So I think all we're really doing by any of these methods is really measuring at the molecular level how different a donor and a recipient are. And when we did multivariate model comparisons using a Kiki information criteria, what we saw is that all of these models were actually quite close to one another. And while eplets perform best overall, I don't think it really matters that much. I think at the clinical level, any of these approaches would be sufficient. So what we're seeing is that we're getting increased prognostic discrimination by using an HLA-DR-DQ molecular mismatch assessment as compared to using the traditional whole antigen mismatch. So if I go back to here's a donor for a recipient, and the yellow are the amino acid mismatches between the donor and recipient on the donor's two DQ molecules. And using this at the traditional approach, you just say, well, this is a 2-antigen mismatch. And then the question becomes, what's the AUC for the risk of developing an antibody using this 0, 1, or 2 mismatch scoring? And basically the AUC was only 0.54, so not much better than a flip of a coin. And the only discrimination was between 0 versus 1 or 2. Well, we already knew that, and it wasn't really that helpful. If you went to Renee's software and looked at the eplet mismatch, and what he does is he sums up all these yellow regions, the sum of the score is 12, and now your AUC goes up to 0.72, so you have much better discrimination, and you could actually define a cutoff that 0 to 11 was a lower risk and 12 and more was a higher risk of developing an antibody. But then what we did is we took it to the next level and said, if you actually look at these two molecules as single molecules and looked at the 9 eplet mismatches here and the 3 here, do you have more discrimination at who's at risk of developing an antibody? And you do. Your AUC goes up to 0.84. And on a single molecule, 0 to 8 was at lower risk, but 9 and more was at a higher risk because most of the antibodies were developing against this molecule and not against this molecule, even though you had a mismatch on them. So then if you want to aggregate that back, so we have multiple class 2 molecule mismatches for a given patient, how do you aggregate that to a score for an individual patient? So I'm giving you an example here where you have DR beta 1 and DR beta 345 or DQ alpha 1 beta 1. And there's 2 molecules for each donor that is relative to the recipient. You can see that most of the mismatches here are quite low, except for this one that's 13. And what we found was that if your DR beta 1 score was less than 7, or your 345 was less than 7, or your DQ alpha 1 beta 1 was less than 9, that you actually were at relatively low risk. So the blue line is you were more than 1, but you were less than these numbers. And it was almost virtually identical to being a 0 mismatch. So this group actually looks low risk, and that's a quarter of our patients that we're transplanting. The rest of them are developing antibodies at a much higher rate. And then we asked the question, well, is this just one group, or is it actually a couple of groups? And we did a repeat ROC curve, and we saw that we could do another breakpoint based on the DQ alpha beta 1, less than 15 or more than 15 eplet mismatches. And this would be a third of our group, and this would be a 40% of our group. So if we come back to this patient, we'd say, well, the highest mismatch score is 13. That's in the intermediate category. So we assess them at being at intermediate risk of developing an antibody. Well, that's Winnipeg. Winnipeg is a certain population. And the question is, well, does that hold true in other populations? So we did a collaboration with the University of Colorado, and we went back and retrospectively looked at their group, and we actually found that we could partition them almost equal to Winnipeg. We were 25, 35, 40 in low, intermediate, and high. And in Colorado, their cohort was 27, 34, and 39, almost the same as ours. And what's different in their population to our population is they have more Hispanic and more African-American recipients compared to Winnipeg. And what was interesting is that those patients who were developing an antibody in the first year, which was 10% overall, 47 patients, only one of the 47 was in the low risk group. So we had a 2% rate of developing antibodies when you were low risk. It was 36% when you were intermediate risk, and it was 62% when you were at high risk. So again, we saw virtually identical to what we saw in Winnipeg. The next step was to say, okay, what about an even more different cohort? So we went to Emory, where they were looking at retrospectively using our approach to evaluate their patients. What's different about Emory is they have, again, partitioning pretty much the same, 21, 33, 46, but now they have 56% Black recipients. So a much more different group as compared to where we were, 67% Caucasian. And what they saw was virtually identical to us. The low risk group was less than 2%, then you had the intermediate, and then you had the high risk group. So we saw the same layering that we were seeing in Winnipeg in now 3 cohorts. So the next thing we went was to Belgium. And in Leuven, they're actually interesting because they actually have a policy forcing DR matching. So they push for a zero DR mismatch. Now the difference there is they're 98% Caucasian, so they don't have the diversity for us to look at. But again, what they saw was the same layering. If you were low risk, you were less than 2% developing an antibody. If you're intermediate, it stepped up. And if you were high, you were stepping up in virtually the same proportions that we saw in the other cohorts. And then finally, we worked with Singapore. We had a fellow come, spent a year with us, and they looked retrospectively at the cohort in Singapore. And what's different in Singapore is they have 65% Chinese, 17% Malay, and 14% Indian. And when we looked there, we saw the same layering as well. So it didn't matter which population we were looking at. It was the molecular mismatch that was really tying to the risk for developing a DSA. And so I come back to this picture where low risk, intermediate risk, and high risk over a 10-year horizon is giving you a prognostic risk for developing an antibody, and you could know that right at the time you did the transplant. The real question is, well, so what? An antibody doesn't mean rejection. It just means you have an antibody in your serum. So we looked at rejection, and we saw the same thing was happening in terms of antibody-mediated rejection over 10 years that it layered out. And what was more interesting was that we looked at what happened in the first year after the transplant and what happens with T-cell-mediated rejection. And we saw, again, the same layering. So as you are going from low to intermediate to high, you're having a much higher risk of developing a T-cell-mediated rejection. So basically, the molecular mismatch is really a prognostic biomarker of a primary alloimmune response, whether it's in the antibody side or in the T cell side. And then the next thing we asked was, does it actually correlate with the severity of the rejection? So we looked at the T cell mediated rejection, and we saw that by the time you got to the severe rejections, which are scored at BAMF greater than 1A, it was largely the high-risk group that was developing these severe grades of rejection. And then we asked the question for the patients who were having recurrent rejections, and we saw the same thing, that you were getting more in the as you were going towards the high molecular mismatch. So not only is it a prognostic biomarker of the having a rejection in general, T or B cell, but it was also predicting the severity of the rejection as well as the recurrence of that rejection after you've treated it. So that got us thinking into, can we start tailoring our immunosuppression to the kidney recipient priorities? And so there's two things that are to think about. One is the degree of mismatch. And as I told you in the multivariate model, age was the other factor. So as you get older, you're less likely to develop an immune response. And it's not linear. This is the plot of the risk of a first TCMR versus the recipient age. And what's happening as you get older is your risk of all-cause graft loss is going up. So the risk of an MI, the risk of a stroke, the risk of other diseases, cancers, are going up. So if you're young and you're getting a high molecular mismatch kidney, you'd really want to be focusing on the efficacy of your drugs, because you know you're going to have a robust immune response and you're going to have a young individual that you're going to try and shut down it. So you better have better efficacy, or you better be trying to get them a lower level of mismatch by giving them better allocation to that individual. If you're older and you have a low mismatch, what you're really focusing on is, can I minimize my drug toxicity? And so can I start dialing down how much drug I'm going to give that person? So then we started looking at, well, what are the hard-coded variables at transplant to develop prognosis? One is the molecular mismatch, and the other is recipient age. And it turns out that basically it's the under 35s that have robust immune responses by comparison to any older age. And so we could take this data and we asked the question, can we combine it together to have an even better risk prediction? And we found that we could. So a low-risk group now, which represents half of our patients, is less than 35 with a low molecular mismatch, or you're over 35 with a low to intermediate. Intermediate is over 35 with a high, and high risk is under 35 with an intermediate or high. But it now partitions out your patient population where half of them are going into a transplant with actually low risk. And the other half are the ones that are going to have to be really thought about, and especially the high risk, the 17%. We all have those patients in our transplant clinics. It's the 20% that causes you grief and the 80% that don't, right? And this gives you a way of getting towards identifying who's going to give you grief in the post-transplant follow-up period. And when we did multivariate analysis, what we saw was that tacrolimus was better than cyclosporin. It protected from rejection. And intermediate versus low was an increased hazard, and high versus low was an even more increased hazard. So that gets us into thinking about this approach here, which is looking at the risk of the patient. You know that at the time of transplant. And then the second thing we looked at was the level of immunosuppression. So you come with your inputs, how molecular mismatched you are, what your recipient age is, and then it's whether you give a sufficient amount of drug after the transplant that's going to get you in and out of trouble. And when we looked at just a simple thing like measuring the lowest recorded TAC level, any one TAC level that was low, what we saw was that in those patients who were developing an antibody post-transplant, they were significantly lower than the control group who weren't developing an antibody. And it generally partitioned at 5. So if you kept your trough level at 5 and above, you actually could really prevent the development of a DSA. And once you fell below 5, you were really putting your patient at risk of developing a DSA. And we saw the same thing with the mycophenolate dose. Those developing a DSA were getting lower doses compared to the control group who weren't developing an antibody. And so giving sufficient immunosuppression is critical. Now, there's a whole rest of this talk, but it would take another 20 minutes around it being also a predictive biomarker, because it tells you who needs what type of drug therapy. And it's really interesting to have a biomarker that's both prognostic and predictive. But I'm not going to go into that. I'm just going to give you the application. And as I said, I've left the PDF so anybody who's interested can look at the slides that talk about this. But if you want to think about application, then at the time of transplant, if you have memory, you have antibodies even before you do the transplant, well, the best thing to do is don't do the transplant. Or what we're doing in Canada now and in the US is we're doing what's called kidney paired donation. So you have a living donor, you have an antibody to that living donor, you go in as a pair to a national algorithm, and the computer actually sorts you all out, and it looks for a donor for you that actually you don't have an antibody to, and you do that transplant. You've essentially brought them to a lower risk. You've gotten rid of the risk of memory. There's other sites that really like to be cowboys, and they do desensitization, and they go right against the antibody. Most of those programs have stopped doing that because they realize it's really difficult to do. But that would be doing a high-risk transplant. But the primary alloimmune response, using age and the molecular mismatch score, you can really dial in what your true risk is going into the transplant. And for low risk, you may or may not even need induction therapy. Induction therapy can be quite toxic. If you can avoid it, because you have a low risk, you're probably better to do that. And you can probably get away with less TAC and less CellCept. And you might even be able to switch them off TAC onto a newer drug called Bella, which has only got about 5% market share in North America at the moment, because people don't really know how to use it and who is it safe to give it to. Intermediate risk, again, you may or may not want to use induction, but you'll use a more standard dose of tacrolimus and MPA in that early post-transplant period. And if you're at high risk, yeah, this is the group that really should get an induction therapy and really needs standard dose drugs. So that's the predictive biomarker part that I haven't given you the data supporting, but it's true that if you look at the rest of the talk, you'll see that. Knowing the prognostic biomarker, you can actually use that to say, well, who actually needs to be monitored post-transplant with something more than just a simple creatinine and TAC levels? If you're at low risk, the chances of finding something on a screening more expensive test, and there's all kinds of tests that are out there now, cell-free DNA is one, urine biomarkers are others, using blood testing with genomics or other approaches. And these tests are selling for hundreds and thousands of dollars. And the question is, should you use that in a low-risk patient? Well, there's probably the likelihood of finding anything with those tests when you're at low risk, you're just going to spend a ton of money that you don't need to spend. So to be cost-effective, you should just monitor the creatinine and their TAC level. At the intermediate risk, yeah, you might want to do some kind of blood or urine biomarker screening once in a while, but you're really going to focus your screening strategy on the high-risk recipient that you've done. And then you'll monitor them not just with a creatinine, but you might even consider a biopsy and some of these non-invasive diagnostic tools that are coming out into the marketplace now. So what I'm trying to really share for you is that knowing the risk going into the transplant really starts to get into the concept of precision medicine, and allows you to start tailoring your therapy, tailoring your monitoring strategy to be cost effective at how you're spending what are limited resources in all countries in the world. It's not just Canada. And we actually showed that you could, when we did a cost analysis, that you could really cut your dollar cost down significantly. So where we go from here, we're really working more in our lab on continuing to optimize the computational analytics. There's a lot of interest in saying, well, are all epitopes the same? Are some more immunogenic than others? We're really interested in that. It's a great question, but you're going to need large data sets. I mean, UP might be able to do it at some point if you do a lot more transplants, but given just the sheer population size that you have, would give you that sort of power to look at it. Trials to test the hypothesis. Can I actually use this to give the drug therapy that's different compared to other patients? And we're in the middle of that now. We're funded by a large NIH grant in a 16 multi-center study across the US, looking at tailoring the immunosuppression based on the molecular mismatch and showing that we can get people off of tacrolimus, which is the drug everybody wants to get off of. And we're in the middle of the study, and we'll hopefully know in the next couple of years where we're going. So with that, I'm going to stop and just say that it takes a village to do these kind of work. It's not just Winnipeg. We collaborate widely. We've had collaborators at the NIAID with Nancy Bridges, Peter Heeger, who's now at UCLA. the University of Cambridge, Art Matus, who's based in Minneapolis, and the University of Colorado, and a group of HLA specialists led by Anat Tambour, and we've been sponsored by NIH and CIHR to do this work over the years. So thanks very much for your attention. And
thank you, Dr. Nickerson, for that interesting talk. We now move forward with the felicitation of our special guests, which symbolizes our respect, our gratitude, and our commitment towards strengthening this collaborative academic relationship. May I now request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, to kindly come forward for the felicitation of our special guests. Dr. Michael Benarosh, President and Vice Chancellor, University of Manitoba, in recognition of his distinguished leadership and his gracious presence today. Requesting ma'am to felicitate Dr. Peter Nickerson, Dean and Vice Provost, Health Sciences, University of Manitoba. I request Dr. Josie Lowa, Dean and Professor, College of Community and Global Health, to kindly accept our felicitations. Requesting ma'am to felicitate Dr. James Blanchard, Executive Director, Institute of Global Public Health, University of Manitoba. Dr. Marisa Becker, Professor and Director, Technical Collaborations, University of Manitoba. And Dr. John Anthony, Senior Project Director and Lead, UPTSU. Thank you, Vice Chancellor ma'am, for the honors. I would now request one and all to kindly stand for the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
So I thanks once again all of you for joining us on this day. I would now request our special guests from the University of Manitoba delegation and the members of UP Technical State Unit, along with our Dean Academics and the members of the core committee, to proceed for a group photograph in front of the administrative block. I will request all the deans of dental sciences, paramedics, IQAC, etc., to please join in the second round of the group photograph.